the shortest guy here.
You just really sunk into the
Well,
couch.
I think the couch is also...
Right, the couch is crazy.
I'm
someone heavier sat there in the past.
Yeah, Aristotle.
That's me. I'm Aristotle Full Throttle, and I'm here with Corey, Tay, and Nathan. And we're going to talk about Star Wars The Last Jedi. We're going to do a full-on spoiler review. And I'm going to have to mute my computer in 1 second. But what, guys, what did you think? I love it.
I just hear you coming from
I know.
the computer.
It's beautiful.
First thing...
I don't know if they can hear the echo, but
They
it's
probably
incredible.
can.
You don't think so? I'm going to take care of that really quickly. But first of all, what did you guys think about Mary Poppins, Princess Leia?
Mary Poppins.
Wait, Mary Poppins, Princess Leia.
Oh.
I missed that part.
Right, no.
When she's flying, like the umbrella.
Right.
Nobody's old enough to remember that. Like that dates everybody on this couch.
Right.
Oh, no.
Like that's like the 35 and older type.
They are
reference.
coming out with the new Mary Poppins.
With Emily Blunt.
They are?
Emily Blunt and Lin-Manuel
Oh my
Miranda.
god. Oh, okay. Well, he's good. But
Yeah,
it's just like
Is he playing the...
like Miranda being involved, almost kind of like it apologizes for the fact that it's a remake. Like, okay,
That's true. I think it's going to be at least decent music for that.
Yeah.
And now that we've covered Mary Poppins,
I'm curious
Well,
if he's going to try the bad Cockney accent, though, from Spanish.
you think so? Maybe maybe they'll do like a version that's like what's the musical Maria? What's my girl name?
West Side Story.
West Side Story. Maybe they'll do like
Maria, I once met a girl named Maria, and suddenly we got back to the stream. The Mary Poppins scene.
I was enjoying that actually. I was like
Yeah.
thinking, this took a great turn into a musical.
Yeah,
We
you
were
should
just-
be at the Christmas concert next door.
I know.
Performing. What the hell?
I came to the wrong door. I think I tweeted this today that the Force kind of became a Harry Potter sort of magic where they were like, whatever we need to happen for the plot here,
We'll just say it's the Force.
it's just the Force is going
Yeah.
to be the reason. And I was actually okay with it. I was okay with it because the cinematography is strong, the characters are strong, the writing is strong. So it's kind of like, fine. Mary Poppins. I mean,
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of cool because that was not the only Force scene with Leia. Like when
Right.
she came back onto the bridge after Poe was kind of doing his mutiny thing.
Yeah, she
that
blew the
door
door.
just kind of like.
She blew
I
the
mean,
door
she kind of like had this Force push or something.
Like
So-
Incredible Hulk did.
I like the egalitarian nature of the Force. This idea that hey, the little kid who can do it with a broom. That like everyone
It's
has
not a
different
bloodline thing.
Yeah, it's not just a bloodline.
yeah.
It's just there. Some people may be more talented than others.
Right.
But that almost kind of moves the Star Wars narrative where it's a little bit more like, hey, like the Superman narrative where it's like, hey, everybody from this planet has this ability.
Yep.
He just happened to end up on Earth, and but it's normal for him
Right.
and the people who are where he came from. This is kind of like breaking Star Wars into this notion where the Force and Force abilities are a little bit more normalized and shared.
I like that idea. I think they hammered that idea home, especially when Luke was training Rey for one of the first lessons. He's like, "What's the Force?" And she's like, "It's a power that Jedi have." And he's like, "No, wrong. It exists between everything." And like they sort of like they're backpedaling on that whole midichlorians idea, which I can't stand.
Yeah.
I think they're just sort of
so bad.
they're really hammering home that the Force is a separate thing and it's not a special power that just Jedis have.
But
It's
going
something that
back
we
to the
can
prequels. Sorry. You did have a setup way back in the prequel things where there were a lot of Jedis, and we don't know how and why they had their powers. They
Right.
just did.
Mm-hmm.
And it's certainly true that probably everybody has the ability to tap into this. In our particular story with the Skywalkers, their bloodline is just dictating that they have a stronger sense to tap into it.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like for me, it was never really any question that they were like, "Oh, your dad was a powerful Jedi, so you'll be a powerful Jedi." It never made me think, "Oh, it was because of this parasitic organism inside his blood."
No.
It was just like, "Oh, of course.
that
Well,
was
your
dumb.
dad was good at that, so you might be good at that." Like a
Yeah,
carpenter.
exactly. Shaq played basketball. His son plays basketball. It's just kind of
I
like,
think we
Same
all liked
thing.
when Obi-Wan Ben Kenobi said it's just this all-powerful thing around us and binds us and whatever.
Yeah.
And we didn't really need any physical, like, organic explanation that it was
That's
like
true.
some
Well, like, yeah, 'cause it's
controlled
like-
by some other organism.
Yeah, because like in the original films, it's much more of, which they touch on very heavily in this film, I feel, like a religion almost.
Yeah.
As opposed to like a scientific explanation for something.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, like that discussion in New Hope, where it's like, your sad devotion to that ancient religion doesn't, let you conjure up the stone data tapes. It was kind of like there was this sense of it was like a monk, like a sect, like a religion, like a
something that can be taught, something
yeah.
that could be like through discipline learned instead of just being born with.
Which explains like the reason Han was always like, it's a bunch of hocus pocus mumbo
yeah,
jumbo.
but also that it had some controversy. Almost, I mean, I hate to say bring it like Scientology, but like that it was a specific. Thing that like that some people might have bought into it, and like Han Solo in A New Hope is like, well, fancy magic, it doesn't equate to a blaster at your side. Like he was very dismissive of the idea,
right?
That whereas now it's I just like I think they've tied. Because there's been some conflict in the past on what the status of the Force is and what it is.
Yeah.
I think they're tying it together nicely.
I think so too. I think also, bringing back, you were talking about Obi-Wan. During that scene when Yoda shows up as a Force ghost, did you guys? I was thinking, watch Obi-Wan also like jump in.
Yeah, I was waiting for that, and then like some old man who's supposed to be like Anakin.
Yeah.
Shows up and talks.
And then they're all sort of trying to convince him to stop destroying. But I guess I kind of like that Yoda.
I think in the most basic sense, Rian Johnson's smart enough to realize that Yoda was probably the only character he could legitimately put in there and get away with. Because if he tried to put in an Obi-Wan, does he put in Alec Guinness, who it would be some sort of weird CG Alec Guinness? Or does he put in Ewan McGregor that makes us all be like, why isn't it an Alec Guinness?
Yeah, exactly. I think, though, it would be forgivable to put in Ewan McGregor in maybe old person.
Well, the scene it was so serious and dreary on that planet, it needed comic relief.
It did, yeah.
So Yoda was brought in in part for the comic relief. I mean, and those little furry things, that scene where Chewbacca's eating one and the other one's
the porgs. That was
looking
pretty
on,
really good.
looking at credit. It needed that type of comic relief that.
You mentioned comic relief, and that was something that I felt more strongly was present in this film than any other Star Wars film.
I think
as
so
far
too,
as like the gags with like the Luke brushes off the shoulder a little bit.
That was cool, actually. I like
the pickup from Force Awakens where Rey hands him his lightsaber and he immediately just throws it behind him and walks away.
Or where Kylo turns on the lightsaber and or catches a lightsaber and goes to the that was the Snoke's guard.
That was dope. That was actually a really cool use of. That scene alone was amazing, actually. But getting back to let's talk about that beginning with Rey handing the lightsaber over to Luke. So you got Episode 7, where the whole movie's building up to find Luke Skywalker. That's basically her mission, their mission. And she goes to hand him this thing, and it's this big moment at the end of The Force Awakens, and then it's just tossed aside in this movie.
It was really perfect because he didn't want to have anything to do with it anymore.
Right.
So he's not going to just take it and be like, I don't know who you are or why you're handing me this, but I'm going to go fight the Empire. It's like,
that's true.
It is time. I came here to escape it.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
And that's a big theme in this movie, is like getting rid of the past. And
let the past go.
Exactly.
They said it a couple of times.
So they said that. Kylo Ren says that. The Sith are dead. The Jedi are dead. Let it all go. Let the rebellion die, and we'll take over. Start anew. And I almost feel like that was like Rian Johnson's purpose in a lot of the.
It's almost like it's almost like channeling the voice of Disney, where it's like they're like, okay, yes, we have to close this franchise, we have to close this story arc before we can start in a different, part of the galaxy or different trilogy. So
I thought it was an allegory for the Disney Fox merger.
It definitely was. And then they brought in the X-Men at the last minute. But again, so that scene with Snoke when Kylo Ren kills Snoke.
Spoiler alert.
I mean, this is
a spoiler review.
It's a spoiler everywhere on this review. No. But thoughts, because let's go down the line here.
I thought it was. I wasn't a huge fan of it because like this all-powerful being that we know really nothing about, but can set Rey and Kylo on like this plane where like they can see and converse with each other and touch.
Yeah.
And like he knows like the conflict within them, and like he can move them around like chess pawns to like get his desired goal, but he can't realize that next to him the lightsaber's starting to twitch and turn and move over a little bit.
Right.
I thought that was a little strange, but I like that they went ahead and took care of him, so you didn't have a Return of the Jedi moment where it's
expected.
Yeah.
Like the third movie is the confrontation with Snoke. I actually liked that scene because Snoke had his eyes closed, and because the Force can only show you, like a nebulous image of the future. So he didn't really, so he could sense that he was going to kill his true enemy. So he had his eyes closed and he was trying to focus on Kylo Ren. So that's why I think he didn't notice.
I thought, the consistent thing in terms of practitioners of the dark side of the Force who are killed or injured is that they are very focused on injuring or overcoming a light-sided foe. That's consistent with Anakin when he gets maimed by Obi-Wan, where he's very focused on in a fight. That's consistent with Palpatine, where he's focused on electrocuting Luke. So I thought that the way that Snoke died, that's kind of it continues that critique of perhaps the tactical or psychological flaw of being of the dark side is being able to hyper focus and maybe so full of rage and so operating in for emotional place that you miss something obvious like oh, by the way, there's this lightsaber sitting here.
And if you remember, the Emperor himself couldn't quite tell if it was going to be Anakin or Luke who was going to be his successor.
And then he was so focused on electrocuting Luke that it's like, oh well, Vader was able to pick him up and throw him away.
So that might have been something that Rian Johnson was going for in that moment.
Yeah, I have two thoughts on that scene. First thought, the grander picture is that they've been setting up this Snoke guy to basically be the Emperor, and he's kind of our ultimate villain. And they've played with this feeling that maybe Kylo Ren's going to end up being a hero, maybe Rey's going to end up going to the dark side, and he's kind of the puppet master in between it all. So to kind of dispatch him in the middle of this film was shocking. Because now things have kind of twisted away from what we've been expecting.
Yeah.
Secondly, on a much shallower level, you see that, like you were saying, you see the lightsaber kind of twitching off to the side, and you get the feeling like it's gonna fly across the room into Kylo Ren's hand, because we've seen that happen in Star Wars so many times, but it doesn't. It just sort of ignites and just slices right through Snoke like butter. And that was like the most creative use of a lightsaber with the Force I think that we've seen in 8 movies.
And it's paid off in that moment because it cuts through him, cuts him in half, and then Rey catches the lightsaber immediately following.
I also think this is a critical moment where Kylo's character is differentiated from Darth Vader. Because there's almost this moment where if Snoke is a sort of Me Too or stand-in for Palpatine, or similar type of character, then and Kylo is this character who wants to be like Vader, then it's kind of like Vader was never really able to stand up to Palpatine until the end. Vader was never really able to kill Palpatine or to bring himself to act on that conflict within him. And this is a place where Kylo is differentiated, being like, hey, Kylo is still very much in conflict in this matter, and to a point where he is able to act on that and kill his master in a way that Vader really wasn't able to until dire circumstances.
Kylo wants to be in control,
and he's reckless too, and that was a reckless move of him, but he did it anyway.
I don't know if it was reckless. I do agree with Tay. The thing that we never saw from Vader was Vader like taking that step to become the supreme leader. He was always, even though he was our main villain, he was always second fiddle.
Well,
and Kylo has now, like, he took that step to be like, hey, you know what? Fuck second fiddle. I'm gonna be the guy. I'm the man.
Well, not to get too deep into Darth Vader's psychology, but his original plan, at least in Return of the Jedi, was to use Luke. Say, hey, partner up with Luke, and say that he needed Luke to destroy the Emperor, because he lacked confidence in his own ability. He felt internally like he was subordinate or not able to defeat the Emperor, and so that Luke was a necessary tool for him to achieve that. And then when that plan failed, when Luke did not comply, then he felt unable to be independent. So I think that's kind of it just highlights the difference between Vader's psychology of subordination versus Kylo's psychology, which is in a different place. And I think that kind of goes into, you can tie that deeper into the metaphor of Vader feeling constrained in the suit and inadequate and all these other things, and Kylo not. So it's good to see that character differentiation between them, especially after Episode 7, where it was all about Kylo idolizing Vader.
Right. And well, Robert Medina in the chat room is saying it seems like they're setting up Kylo Ren to be like the new Darth Vader, Darth Ren. I mean, it's pretty much, I feel like they are and they aren't. So he's going to fill that role, but in a different capacity.
I think the scene where he smashes his mask was kind of the way of saying, like, I'm not just a Vader clone. I'm a whole new villain.
Yeah.
And I'm not afraid to show my face.
Right.
No.
I
or
like
my
that.
humanness or humanity, I guess, if you will.
Again, that goes into the theme of like getting rid of the past, because and I think there's also Rian Johnson sort of realizing that Adam Driver's a really good actor, and he shouldn't be behind a mask an entire movie.
Yeah. Well, also, it was a choice for Kylo Ren to wear the mask, and it was not a choice for Vader. Like, that was his life support.
Right. Yeah, that's why he's like, get rid of that ridiculous thing. And he took it and he smashed it to bits. I thought that was cool.
It does raise a question in the Star Wars universe. Maybe y'all have an answer from other places, but like, we haven't been exposed to many Siths or dark Jedi, as it might be.
Right.
We got Vader, who was wearing his mask and outfit because of, like you said, health necessity. We have Darth Maul, who looked cool in some cool-ass makeup with some horns, but we don't know why.
Who had no character.
He was so cool, and they killed him.
And now we've got Kylo Ren, who's obviously just, coming from like a fanboy perspective.
Right.
But we don't really know all the rest of these other dark Jedi, why they don't have these particular looks.
I was interested in seeing what they do with that, as far as like the dark side users, and because it was called The Last Jedi, it seemed as though they were going to sort of, just judging from the previews and stuff, like shift gears. I mean, in the preview, Luke Skywalker says it's time for the Jedi to end. So he's like, are we going to go with a new kind of Force user, or are we going to go with, like, I know that the extended universe has the Bendu, or I think it's canon actually, which is like it's a gray Jedi, someone who uses light and dark side of the Force.
Also tactically, what are they, 7 different lightsaber forms, and I think Mace Windu is known for, was it Form 7, which is the idea that like you can dip into the dark side,
right?
In order to, and that's why Mace was kind of able to equal Palpatine, at least when they fought, is that he was able to dip into that to some extent. I really liked the critique of the Jedi Sith binary, and I liked the deeper ethical critique. I liked it as being tied to a metaphor of why the galaxy ended up being corrupt, political corruption of the military-industrial complex in the galaxy, and why the Jedi were not able to counteract that.
Right.
I really liked that larger ethical narrative.
Yeah, and that's true. I mean, it's like, come on, the Jedi couldn't do it. Like, what the hell? You guys suck. Like, well, I thought that was interesting too. But they sort of doubled down on the idea of the Jedi at the end, that they were going to bring rise to the new Jedi Order again, and it almost seems as if they were going to use Leia as the spearhead for that, as sort of this combined general of the rebellion and also a Force user who's also a mentor to Rey, which I guess they're going to have to like sort of figure that out for episode.
Yeah, no, I mean, I honestly expected Carrie Fisher to be killed off.
Me too.
In this, and they had 3 very clear opportunities to do it, and they passed on each of those. I mean, even without disrupting much of the movie's plot, they could have knocked her off at the end, toward the end, and she's still there. Fantastic job, but it does kind of raise the question of what are they going to do in episode 9?
Yeah.
But I liked to see her using the Force. I liked to see her again. Going back to the Mary Poppins scene.
Right. Exactly. That was
It was. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that. I guess you can sort of write your way around anything, and they're gonna have to do that for episode 9 as far.
Doesn't Leia say specifically in Return of the Jedi that I can't do what you do? Well, like she says to Luke that I could never do what you do, and Luke says yes you can.
Yeah.
Like they have that specific conversation about Leia's Force abilities.
My father has it. I have it.
Yeah.
My sister has it.
Sister.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we got a call coming in.
We've all watched a lot of Star Wars here, apparently.
Yeah.
I know we're still we go back to sister now. We're still concerned with who is Rey and who are her parents, and is she somehow related to this Skywalker clan?
Right.
And
I actually enjoyed that.
That wasn't answered in any fashion. You can say that it was when Kylo Ren tells her that there's nothing happening. He's seen her parents and they're nobodies. They just left her. But that's not necessarily the truth either.
That's true. Actually, we've got a special guest Skyping in right now, Corcon. I don't know if you probably see him on camera.
I don't know if they can hear me or not.
We can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you. So I got the volume all the way up. So we were just talking about Rey's parentage, and I actually thought that it was really cool that even Kylo Ren says straight up, he says to her, "You don't belong in the story. You come from nowhere. You're nothing."
Yeah.
And I thought that was great because I didn't think that she needed to be a Skywalker. I didn't think that she needed.
Well, it fits along with the narrative drive of the story to make the Force a more universal thing.
Right. And I thought that was great. I thought that. So did you have a comment about that also, Corcon?
Yeah, I mean, it's a core part of the story as they're trying to show, where Snoke had said, with the rise of your being evil, that the rise of light will come to match. But they don't know where that would come from. He thought it would be Luke. It actually became Rey.
Right.
The fact that her parents are nobody, they kind of also reflected that with the Finn and Rose storyline of you can be a janitor, you can be a mechanic, you can be a slave and still become important.
Yeah, that was it.
And then they show the kid at the end who has the Force and he grabs the broom and he's sweeping and he's dreaming of becoming a rebel.
Yeah.
It's all to show that it doesn't matter where you come from. You don't have to have important parents to be important.
Yeah.
As long as you have the drive.
Yeah, it's not a genetic thing. It's not a eugenic thing.
Right.
Where the finest of the finest are or the domain of an elite thing, and that again goes back to a critique of the Jedi, who in many ways the Jedi Order sort of presented the Force as a privileged thing, as a eugenic thing that had to be very carefully cultivated by the most select people and the most disciplined practitioners, and it was dangerous to just engage it willy-nilly outside of that very rigid dogma. And so that's also in part a departure from the Jedi, and in line with what Luke's position is in this film, which is that the Jedi need to die.
And that reflects the storylines of a lot of movies, or stories in general. You can say, of course, that the Empire or the First Order, they reflect the Nazis, and the Nazis felt the same way, that their race was more important, and so everybody else should die. Or, if you want to go to other movies with Harry Potter, Voldemort saying that only true bloods and not half-bloods. There's a lot of vampire stories out there where they talk about full-bloods or the ones that were conformed, that they're not real vampires.
Right.
I mean, it's a very similar theme with a lot of films, that I could see that if you come from somewhere of privilege, that people are going to treat you better.
Absolutely.
And evil people are always going to have that mindset that I'm more important than you are because of this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even with modern politics of like, you know, the class system and the 1% versus, you know, the everyman. You know, we got to get rid of the poor people and help the rich.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't really believe necessarily that she came from nowhere. It could have been a lie.
Mm-hmm.
It could be trying to keep her from knowing the truth about herself. And that's yet to be determined, because I'm sure the filmmakers are listening to things like this, and using this information to determine whether or not they want to keep that as the truth, or if they want to find a more interesting lineage for her.
Well, because there was always kind of this non-canonical canonical gossip that Anakin was somehow created by the Force, or birthed by the Forces. By the midichlorians came together. He was immaculately conceived by the midichlorians as this.
I just never dug that. I never liked that.
No, I never liked it either. I thought that was silly.
Yeah, but
I don't think that they're going to say that Rey has important parents just because it was so strong in this movie. And the fact that she was the one that first mentioned that they were nobody. It wasn't Kylo Ren. He just said, you know the truth. You just need to admit it to yourself. And she said, they're no one.
Yeah.
Or they're nothing. And then he reinforced it. But it wasn't where the psychology of him trying to convince her she came from nowhere. They just both kind of knew it. And
it was, again, that sort of forget the past, let go of the past. It doesn't matter. We need to move forward with whatever is
going on. But I'm also glad that they went that route, because so many people have been complaining about The Force Awakens being too similar to Episode 4. And if you gave Rey's parents to be Luke, or in this movie they were trying to show that maybe her and Kylo were siblings by having that connection before Snoke came out and said, oh no, I just did that.
Yeah,
That if they gave her important parents in the third movie, it would take away from all of that.
I think so too. I definitely agree with that, and I like the way they sort of did that, because I was in suspense actually when she goes into that little sort of that Darth Vader, the Luke Skywalker cave on Dagobah where he like confronts Vader. There's sort of the similar parallel, and then she sees herself, and I thought that was well done. And then the way that they had the two images of people walking toward the frosty mirror,
splintered mirror thing.
And they come together, and then she wipes it, and it's just her face reflecting back at her. I thought that was well done. I thought that was a good, nice touch too. Yes. And I was in suspense. I was like, oh my god, I guess they're going to reveal it right now.
It was one of the more suspenseful moments for me in the movie.
Yeah. What other standout moments did you like? What do you guys think of Crate, the planet Crate, with the salt and the red dirt underneath? And
visually very cool, but ultimately a slight bit confusing, maybe. I don't understand like the point of having that like that, and making this specific, like, oh look, this isn't blood, this isn't snow, it's salt.
Yeah.
Well, they just did it because it looked cool.
Because it looks cool.
Yeah, because there was a moment where it was like they're kicking up the red dust, and there's the blue sky, and there's like the white.
It definitely looked cool.
You got the trenches, and you got like the rebel soldiers in the trenches. Then you got the AT-ATs coming out of the fog, and it was a nice callback to the opening sequence of Empire.
So what about Luke's Force kamikaze suicide apparition projection? Whatever happened there at the end, that he like was able to materialize there, be acknowledged by everybody there, including C-3PO, and
being able to touch Leia, hold hands,
and yet still be on his island at the same time.
I think it was fantastic. I think it was a fantastic use of Supreme Master of the Force.
Me too. Yeah, that's how I took it.
And maybe Nate touched on a slight fault in the filmmaking, where maybe he shouldn't have been able to physically touch Leia. But
she's strong in the Force too, so maybe
maybe he didn't actually touch her, and maybe she knows that.
He did not actually touch Leia.
I don't think so.
And that Leia knew that he was just a Force image because he did the act of kissing her on the forehead, and she knew he's not here because I don't feel him kissing me on the forehead.
But also because they're both so strong in the Force, that maybe that's possible, because earlier when it's Kylo and Rey,
there's a
when she's on the island, they're able to reach out and touch hands, and then Luke walks in and catches them.
Not actually touching hands.
So they do set that up, and I thought it was also interesting the quote lightsaber duel between Kylo Ren and Luke. They never clash swords. They never clash sabers.
He's too good. He doesn't need to clash swords.
Yeah, and I thought that was cool too, because I was like, okay, yeah, exactly. I'm like, but it's because he wasn't there. But it's also because I was like, yeah, Luke is not going to fight because he's above that. He's gonna sit there and talk to him and try to figure out a peaceful solution.
But Kylo doesn't initially know that he's not there, so it also plays into Kylo's naivety and inexperience in the Force.
It also plays into our own nativity.
Nativity.
Also,
we are a nativity scene right now with this Christmas tree right here.
because they unleashed all those blasts on Luke Skywalker, and then he just walks out of the blast, and the entire audience is
awesome.
He's so strong. Yeah, he can't even kill him.
And he's all. And
nobody realizes that it's a Jedi trick.
Yeah.
Like, they even pulled one over on us.
But that's the cool thing, again, about the Force that I always like about the Star Wars movies, is that they always add a level to it that they didn't have, that we didn't know about before. So every movie successively adds, like, another little wrinkle in the Force. Like, the first movie had the Jedi mind trick. The second movie, Empire Strikes Back, telekinesis. He could move the lightsaber with his mind. They didn't have any of that in the first one. So, and then the third one, I think it was, like, Force lightning. So every movie they sort of add a new layer to the Force that we didn't know about, and I just looked at the Force projection as only the Jedi Master Luke Skywalker could do that. So he did.
Sure, I agree.
Yeah,
I don't think the Force has been explained to us in its entirety.
Right.
We don't know all of the possibilities of the Force.
And then Yoda
and the Masters don't even know all the possibilities. They're still learning.
Yeah.
I mean, Yoda appearing
Go ahead, Corco.
Sorry, I was just gonna say if the Jedi can die and come back as a blue glowy, why can't they just not be blue glowy when they're alive?
That's a good point there.
In a way, he's kind of projecting himself the way he would in death as a blue glowy Force ghost. He's just not dead yet.
Yeah, and also that perhaps it aided to his death.
Yeah, I mean,
and they set that up earlier too when Rey and Kylo were talking the first interaction, and Kylo said, "You're not doing this. The effort would kill you."
Mm-hmm.
Oh, did they say that?
Yeah,
I never caught that actually.
Oh, they did say that. Yes. Yeah, he's right. Yeah, you're right, Corcoran.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's a nice catch actually.
Yeah,
and that makes perfect sense. And I was, as much as I wanted to see Luke Skywalker in Episode 9 again. I mean, we probably will.
He's going to be a Force ghost, especially now that we can't have Carrie Fisher.
Along with the puppet Yoda.
With the puppet Yoda, and maybe we'll get like a Ewan McGregor, an old makeup.
We won't get an Obi-Wan.
We won't get an Obi-Wan.
I guarantee we will not get an Obi-Wan.
Maybe just a voiceover of Obi-Wan. No.
How about Yoda's Zeus moment where he's just like, yeah, fuck the Jedi. like he just comes down.
Yeah.
I guess that's another expansion of the Force. The Force ghosts can now summon,
control matter.
We were talking briefly about the amount of humor in this movie, and there was a good amount.
They really had those
specifically the Yoda moment. I thought really brought back like the Empire Strikes Back Yoda, where before we really knew he was a Jedi Master, and
he's going through the backpack and hitting
R2-D2. And maybe his toying was funny. But when you look back on it, you realize that toying was testing.
Yeah. And that's why he's the ultimate Jedi Master, for sure. Like, he's always... And he's got about 840 years on Luke Skywalker. So he's pretty... He's been around.
What I liked about the humor in this movie is it wasn't distracting from the story.
Right.
The problem we had with, like, Jar Jar Binks and some of the humor in the prequels was that it was integrated in characters in the story to where it distracted from the story. But for this, they were like very quick moments of humor, especially the stuff with the porgs. They were just cute animals doing something cute at that moment, but it didn't distract from what was actually going on.
Right. I did notice that, like, even during the Millennium Falcon flying through the crate, the crystal mines, where the salt mines. You know, they're jumping up and down on the dashboard of the Falcon, and it was cute.
Chewing,
you know, and Chewie gets to be. I mean, Chewie was always like, you know, down below when Han was flying.
Yeah,
to keep it together. But
it's the first time Chewie wasn't Peter Mayhew.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, I was thinking about that actually.
That's true.
Well, Peter Mayhew was paid as a Chewbacca consultant.
Yes,
in the credits. I was like, oh.
Chewbacca consultant.
Guess that's an interesting thing to put on your resume.
Maybe he just isn't healthy enough to play to actually go to work every day.
He's not. They talked about that in. He had interviews and behind the scenes for The Force Awakens that he was in the suit for some of the sitting stuff, but he just isn't mobile enough anymore.
Which is unfortunate,
But he would talk to the guy that took his place so that he could properly reflect his movements, so that like his head movements, his walking, his stance, his shoulders, what he did with all of that was the same. And
my favorite part about that was actually when they ask either, I think the guy's like a Danish dude because he's like 6'10" or something, and when they ask him which scenes are you and which scenes are Peter, and he says guess. Because he doesn't want to tell. He doesn't want to say which scenes he's in. So, which was pretty cool of him to just be like.
Well, if he's walking around, it's gonna be him.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you saying that all Danish people are 6'10"?
I'm just saying stereotypically, you find tall people in that part of the world.
I think
Aristotle would know.
I'm Danish. I'm a very Danish person, actually. I don't know if you can tell by my curly hair, but yeah, it's What other moments were stand out for you? What do you guys think about General Hux being a punching bag through the whole movie?
It makes sense with his character from the first movie.
I'm a little conflicted about him.
Yeah.
I wasn't so sure of his place in the story in the first movie.
Right.
And in this one, at least he kind of seemed to actually fill a role being a punching bag.
Yeah.
But yet still... didn't get just dispatched. He's still being used.
I wish there were a few more moments where Snoke played them against one another, because I really enjoyed that dynamic of clearly he's using Kylo to influence Snoke or to influence Hux to get him to do his will, and then he's also using Kylo Ren can you imagine he has an insult.
I really enjoyed early in the movie when Snoke knocked Hux to the ground and slid him across.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
He's they're like, Snoke's on the line. He's like, I'll take it in my chambers, and he just gets smashed.
Or the distraction that Poe was doing.
Oh,
I thought Hux was I'm holding for General Hux.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
Still holding for Hux.
I do love that strategy that it's basically an X-wing with Poe Dameron piloting against a dreadnought. Just saying, listen, we can do this the easy way, or we can do it my way, and then he just goes for it and just takes out all the cannons. And I thought that was a pretty good opening.
That was one of the things I really liked that they didn't have in the other movies. That they showed the strategy and the purpose for the individual ships.
Yeah.
So in previous movies, it was just a space battle. There were a lot of ships going, fighting each other, but we didn't really have any organization. You didn't know where they were in the battle or what their purpose was. And in this, you got to see the entire field of battle. You knew where every ship was located and what the purpose was, with him going in to take out the medium cannons so that the bombers could come in to take out the large ship, and who is supporting who and why they're there, and not just calling them support. So I liked getting the reasons for all of that.
Yeah, and exactly why the ships were in a stalemate for so long, which was an essential part of the movie. They explained tactically why that was the case, and I appreciated at least trying to incorporate some rational basis to some of the technobabble. What did everyone think of the Rose Tico character and kind of that subplot? Where
I loved her. I thought she was great.
She was cool.
I liked her, but I think the storyline with her and Finn going to that planet to find the code breaker wasn't really needed, and it distracted. It was too separate from the core story.
Right.
I disagree.
You disagree?
I do disagree, only a little bit, in the fact that it was sort of the whole thing was sort of a red herring, and it was a necessary red herring in the entire movie, because we were trying to find this code breaker and we were trying to achieve this goal that ultimately was a goal that was failed upon.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a goal we needed ultimately. But I think from a story perspective, we needed to feel like that was a legitimate course of action. It also did introduce us to a character, Benicio del Toro, who is undoubtedly going to be a larger part of the next movie.
How so?
Yeah, and I'm glad that he's in it. I wouldn't cut those scenes out of the movie. I was just saying that those parts slowed down the movie.
Definitely.
Yeah, it did feel a little. I thought it was interesting the use of BB-8 in some of those sequences.
Yeah.
Hey, putting him on his own. Was it an ATST?
ATST, yeah. That was pretty great.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
There were a lot of funny BB-8s. No, I mean, I also thought, I mean, the connection with her sister, you know, in the bomber scene at the start.
Yeah.
That was a beautifully done scene.
And
That was a great scene.
the medallion.
Yeah.
You know, I thought it was just, it was, yes, it was a little bit hokey, the side plot, but it was well acted.
Right.
It was acted
Very
with
well
commitment,
acted.
and it was well implemented. So I kind of forgave the fact that, you know, it was a little bit of an optional detour.
Right. I did like that opening bomber sequence though with her sister, and you know her trying to get that remote and it dropping, and then it passes her, and we're like, and then it's the moment it's turned again. I think Rian Johnson did that a few times in this movie, where especially with like the Mary Poppins General Leia, where it's like she blew up, she died, and I thought that was like it. I was like, okay, I'm ready to accept that that's the end of Leia. But then she's like floats back into the ship and then is in the rest of the movie.
You almost kind of wonder if
Yeah.
maybe they retooled things knowing that she had died in real life and we were all expecting her to die in the movie.
Right.
That they made sure that she doesn't die in the movie because that's so predictable.
Right.
I never expected her to die because
from what I understand is she was supposed to have a much larger part
Yes.
in the third movie.
Yeah.
And they had to rewrite all of that because she had died. They had already finished everything in The Last Jedi. So that they didn't change anything in The Last Jedi because she died in real life. They had to change the third movie though.
right. Like I think if I remember from like an interview with Kathy Kennedy, like Carrie Fisher's talking to her and she was like, look, you know, Harrison had his movie and, you know, Mark's got his movie. I want to be the main focus of the third movie. And apparently she was going to be, then unfortunately she passed away.
Yeah, that really did seem like that was the direction they were going in. But the person who assumed command, the Laura Dern character, I felt it was a kind of a flat character. I didn't really feel...
I expected her to be with the First Order.
Yeah, like a traitor. I think they sort of set it up a little bit, like a little nuance toward that. And you're like, why is she here? She's obviously not as good a commander or a leader as Leia.
Although, who else would you have acting opposite of a Poe Dameron type character? Like, you need that contrast. You need that
sense of stability.
counterplay.
And,
But she also
somebody
caused
specifically to
some
counter him.
problems.
What was that?
She also caused some problems. Like
Right.
a lot of the mutiny thing wouldn't have happened if she had just mentioned that they were going to that planet. You know, Poe didn't know about the planet until after all of that was done and Princess Leia showed it to him and he's like, oh yeah, okay, that would work.
Yeah, like why didn't she
If
just
she
say
had
this
just
in the
mentioned
first
it to
place?
him in the
Everything
beginning,
would
then
have
it wouldn't
been
have been a big deal at all.
Well,
at the
that's
same time,
that's-
if he had just followed the chain of command.
but he doesn't. That's
Yeah.
that's the thing between that he
they
has.
know that he's not going to.
That's what he has between General Leia and Poe Dameron. Is there's the dynamic that they both kind of break the rules, and they don't follow the rules, but they totally trust each other.
Yeah.
and they
I wouldn't say totally because Leia came in
and stunned him.
and
Yeah.
zapped him. So.
That was awesome though. She's like, you know, sit the F down. I'm gonna stun you. But that was great. I loved that Laura Dern's character, what she had done, the sequence, the actual destroying of the fleet by jumping to hyperspace into a ship, and then just a chain reaction destroying it. Like that was cool because we didn't need another Death Star, but it was cool to see an entire fleet destroyed.
And I like the choice of taking out all sound.
All sound, just completely
Yeah,
silent.
silence.
All you really hear is the people in the theater going, "Oh."
Yeah.
The visual with the silence was really incredible.
I loved that. I loved it. I thought that was just like so well done. And it's because Star Wars is such a like you're bathed in all of these amazing alien sounds and like guns and engines and all these things. And then
the
it's
John
just,
Williams score.
and the score.
Yeah.
There you go. And then it's just nothing.
I liked how the fleet battles weren't just about sensory overwhelming sequences. Like, you know, everything had a specific purpose, and it was more constrained, but it meant more. And when they said, you know, we're down to 400 people on 3 ships, and then, you know, 2 of the last 3 get destroyed, and they're really, you know, and by the end, you know,
everyone's getting on the Falcon.
Yeah, everyone's getting on the Falcon. It's like you really it does a great job of numerically conveying this scorched earth.
Complete depletion
of the Rebel Alliance.
Yeah, very much.
That was I mean, where do we go from here? Like, what happens? I feel like this movie there's a lot of finality in it. You know, like again with Snoke killing Snoke, and I mean, I thought that Finn was gonna die. I think we all did in that moment. And they really.
Oh yeah, no, I did too.
I didn't.
Yeah.
You didn't?
I did not.
Why,
I did not
why
think
not?
he was gonna die. He's too big of a character in the new trilogy.
Yeah.
And I felt ultimately he's got to continue on.
His story didn't feel finished.
Yeah, correct. I didn't necessarily expect Rose to live or die.
Yeah.
Saving him.
But I mean,
I think a factor that can't be ignored, and it goes into their subplot too. You know, Rose and Finn's subplot is, you know, it's good to see more minority characters receiving screen time.
Yeah, exactly.
Certainly, what was the movie last year?
Rogue One.
Rogue One.
Yeah.
Rogue One had a lot of diversity.
Diego
in it.
Rivera.
You know, so it's kind of almost like, you know, Rose and Finn.
They're both
why
they gotta kill them first?
Yeah, it's like if they got killed off, it's almost kind of like
it's like come on, Hollywood.
We're back to regular Hollywood now.
I do have to say though
we
that
gave you some diversity. Now we'll take it away. We don't.
It's like
it was a little.
I'm gonna check
bit,
some comments here.
Upsetting to me, maybe. I don't know. Upsetting might be too harsh of a word.
Oh, is that
they still got 2 ethnic minorities together. And there wasn't, like, say, a white person and an ethnic person.
Well, there's a kiss between Finn and a romance between Finn and
Rose.
Yeah, there's a bit of a romance. Muhammad.
Yes, but I'm saying they're both ethnic characters.
Did Finn kiss Rey at any point in this?
No,
she did.
They hugged.
They hugged.
They hugged.
Okay.
It was interesting to me that like
hug.
Poe and Rey finally met. It's like,
the
oh wait,
first-
they didn't meet in the first movie.
They didn't
wasn't
meet,
that actually
and
kind of cool? Like you're like, oh hey, and we're like at the end of the second movie.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
this is the first time we've actually met.
We're like the 3 main characters of the last one. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
we realized the same thing. I was like, whoa, they didn't meet last movie.
Yes, exactly. Muhammad Ritsky says, did you guys realize that when Kylo versus Luke never left a red salt mark on his feet, actually? I didn't notice that.
Ooh, that's
Yeah.
a good call.
That's true,
Because when
they
the
didn't
one...
purposely show that Kylo was leaving red marks when he slid.
Oh.
Like they hyper-focused on his feet, but they never showed Luke's feet.
I'm actually going to see it again tonight at 10.
Oh, wow.
So I'm going to look
He's
for
seen
that.
it the third time he's seen it.
I'm going to see it a
I've
third time.
got one for you. They never said the line, I have a bad feeling about this.
Oh, that's true.
I got one.
What's up?
Did you guys notice how she stole the Jedi texts?
I did see that, yeah.
I didn't notice that.
She
no.
had them in the end.
They're at the end when she's getting a blanket out of a drawer on the Falcon to give a blanket to Leia. You see them just in the cupboard.
Page
Then,
turners, they
yeah.
are not.
Is it just me, or has the set for the Falcon been enlarged in its current CGI manifestation? The hallways just seem a little bit more spacious than...
I didn't notice. Well, I'll definitely take a look this time. But I mean, I love the gunner sequences when they're using the guns, the turrets.
Also, how did she get back on the Falcon from...
There was a line. She says like one quick line.
To Chewie?
Yeah, there was one thing like, thanks. I forget what it is, but I remember they took care of that. Actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
I took a little offense with the fact that Rose and Finn were both on the ground about to get decapitated by some sort of laser Sith of some sort. And we cut away to something, and then all this shit crashes into the bridge or wherever they're at. And for some reason, everybody there has been destroyed except for Finn and Rose.
That was a little...
And now they're safe.
Yeah, it was a little Hollywood.
It is a space opera.
But going back to Luke's force projection, I liked that he had less gray and his hair was shorter. Mm-hmm. Because I noticed that right away. I'm like, did he cut his hair and dye his beard? Like,
what was that 80s montage sequence where it's like, you got the touch? Yeah, like shave him before he goes.
Exactly.
He was making himself look the way that he did when he last saw Kylo.
Exactly. Yeah. That's how they remember him. They remember him like that. So that was pretty cool. Nice little subtlety, because you're just like, you're not quite sure until you're 100% sure, where you see the older, grayer Luke floating on the rock. And that was cool.
What did we think of, the whole sub-story with Kylo and Luke and, kind of unveiling what transpired between them?
I love that.
Yeah, me too.
I thought, I would have been happy to see more of that in flashbacks.
Yeah. I liked the retelling of the story from different standpoints, because everybody's got their point of view, and when you hear it from Luke, you feel one way. When you hear it from Kylo, you feel it another way. And
so which one do you believe? Do you want to believe Luke because he's Luke. The good guy?
I believe Luke. I also believe it's
I
a little.
believe the second story that Luke said.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think it could be like a little bit of a mixture of the two, but I think Luke has no reason to really not be trusted.
But then it's like that serves as a setup for the differentiation between Luke and Rey, because Luke clearly has this PTSD, this discomfort with the dark side of the Force, that he's never been comfortable with it. He was terrified of it when he sensed it in Kylo, to the point of, considering killing him. And Rey, immediately senses, Luke, you've blocked yourself off from the Force. You're you're in denial of this whole aspect of what's there, which is, of course, from the prequels, a huge part of the Jedi religion, that, you are supposed to block off the dark side of the Force and focus on the light. And so Luke is kind of like in this moment where it's like, well, I'm derivative, I'm of this flawed way of engaging the Force. And so Rey and Kylo are the different solutions to deal with the sins of the past, the sins of their predecessors.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
Neither is completely, dark side or light side. Neither could really be called completely Sith or Jedi or First Order.
And then you wonder, maybe... would Kylo not have gone to the dark side had he not now felt betrayed by the person that was teaching him the ways of the Force?
I don't know, because Luke did say that he was able to see the amount of darkness inside of him.
Yeah.
I don't know. Even in Empire, we saw Luke had an amount of darkness inside of himself.
And what were you going to say, Korkan?
I was just saying that he had said, I saw that Snoke had already turned his heart. That Snoke had already been working
on him. Yeah, that's right. He'd been working on him, so
he had already turned his heart. It was more of he just hadn't fully moved there yet, and Luke had seen it, and that's what scared him. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, him having a lit lightsaber over your sleeping body, I think that's enough to, that would be jarring for me, too. Right. What the hell are you doing, man?
So both of their stories are right.
I want to see a movie about that before Adam Driver and Mark Hamill get too old.
Right.
Honestly, maybe not a main trilogy movie, but maybe
maybe
a spin-off.
6.753.
A spin-off like Rogue One that just goes into that.
Well, we already have 6.5. I don't remember what it was.
Right. 6.5?
It was the story of how Snoke came to be. Was that it? And he was a fry cook and got burned by some grease?
Fry cook that got burned by splattered grease.
Yeah. This unfortunate cooking accident led him to the dark side.
The whole kitchen went up in flames.
1 second, I got to turn the camera back on. Continue talking.
But yeah, you also got to remember how close Luke got to the dark side in Return of the Jedi also. Like when the Emperor's take this, strike me down, strike your father down. And like he wanted to, just kill the Emperor, but he's like, no, I can't.
I think though Luke did tap into the dark side in order to defeat Vader, because he used his rage to defeat him and it cut his hand off.
True.
And what brought him back was he saw that he was becoming like him.
Yes, because he cut his hand off because he had his hand cut off by him.
Exactly, and it was a mechanical hand, and he looked at his own mechanical hand, and he's like, "Oh, I am being this," and that's the moment he brought himself back from the dark side, and then came back to the light. So that's a thing. Like you mentioned, Mace Windu being able to dip into that, and that's what made me think of that earlier. Was
any Jedi could dip into it. It'd be Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah, that's true.
I was kind of hoping that they were going to introduce Grey Jedi, the idea of Grey Jedi, into the movies.
Yeah,
by saying, with him saying it's time for the Jedi to end, I was hoping that would be him ending the Jedi religion and then trying to teach Rey more of the Grey Jedi philosophy.
Right.
They might have actually been setting that up for the next movie.
I think you're right about it. I just thought of that, like maybe Rey is the one who sort of cultivates this new thing because she had been in communication with Kylo Ren, and maybe she felt something different, or maybe she saw different aspects of the Force that hadn't been tapped into. Or, I mean, let's go back to that scene though. After Snoke gets killed by Kylo Ren, how satisfying was that
to watch them fight together,
back to back? Kicking
really cool.
The Imperial Guard's ass. Like, that was really awesome, I thought. I thought that was a really good payoff moment.
What I really liked about that sequence is, with a lot of Hollywood movies these days, it's like they forgot how to film an action sequence. And it's nice to see Rian Johnson pull the camera back. We get to see everybody in frame, longer cuts, no shaky cam.
Yeah.
And so beautiful cinematography. You get to see all of the movements. It was gorgeous. I thought it looked great. It wasn't like the best martial arts sequence of all time, but they're all novices, of course, anyway.
Yeah.
So they don't have to be. But I thought it looked really good, and I was so happy to see a properly filmed fight
Absolutely.
scene.
You're right, yeah, because it wasn't a fight scene made for the ADD generation.
It wasn't like
it wasn't like full of
spins and twirls and flips.
Well, it wasn't
like
full of jump cuts and and handheld shots and like and shaky cams and quick zooms and like all the and crane shots, like all the things of that cut aesthetic that appeals to the. It's almost like the editor is a performer in those fight scenes. Where this is a scene where the editor is not trying to be a third performer or an additional performer,
right? Exactly.
In the fight sequence.
That's true. I mean, like there's always that famous scene from, I think it's Taken 2, where
jumping over the fence.
Yeah, where Liam Neeson's jumping over the fence, and there's 17 cuts of him jumping over a fence. There's 17 angles of him just climbing a fence and jumping over it.
Yeah, touching on that briefly.
Yeah.
I really did feel that the cinematography and the look of the film fit nicely in the original trilogy kind of look and feel and style. Obviously, there was more CGI than we had in the original trilogy and puppets and whatever.
Yeah.
But it still kind of felt very organic. There wasn't an overabundance of CGI. There wasn't an overabundance of fast camera moves, etc. They really dialed it back a little bit and made sure, as in episode 7, that we were kind of given this more organic film.
Yeah. Yeah.
The lighting reflected that too.
The lighting reflected. I think this is the movie that has Star Wars is known for. I mean, George Lucas really loves his wipes in the
right.
And I think this has. I think it has 2 wipes in the whole movie.
I definitely noticed one, but I can't say I was paying that much attention.
But I remember the prequels had the most wipes. It was all wipes.
No, prequels.
Yeah. But this one, I remember. I think I read about it though, because Rian Johnson was like, "I'm ashamed to admit there are only 2 wipes in this entire movie."
I mean, if you go back to the 70s and he had those wipes. Maybe if he made those movies in the 90s, those wipes wouldn't have existed.
That's true.
Because it was old school filmmaking back then.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was a reflection of the serials from the 1950s and 40s where they used those wipes all the time.
He was paying homage to the Flash Gordon from the 30s.
Exactly.
What were you gonna say, Tim?
Well, so Rian Johnson, he's when he got hired to do the trilogy, that starts with a fresh slate in a different galaxy or a different part of the galaxy.
Yep, he's doing a whole new trilogy. He's developing a whole new trilogy, writing it and directing the first one, or just developing it at least. So.
What are your guys' thoughts on JJ coming back now to do episode 9 from episode 7?
I'm a little worried.
I like Johnson better than JJ.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I think Johnson's just a more. He's better with character. He's better with character development, and these movies are about character, really. I mean, they're really about visuals as well, because they pioneered visuals in cinema. But at this point, there's really not much further to go in that category. But
well, who would you have rather had, JJ or Colin Trevorrow?
Definitely JJ over Colin Trevorrow.
Yeah.
I don't know that guy well enough to trust him with Star Wars.
Yeah.
I mean, I did a movie with John Schwartz over the summer, who's Trevorrow's DP now. He also did like Armageddon and The Rock and all that stuff. And like John was really excited about doing it, and he told us about some of the security that's involved with like even reading the script. It's like you have to go through like all these different checkpoints. Right. Like they take your phone, they sit you in a room, and someone watches you read the script.
Jeez.
I mean, he said it was insane. And I was kind of looking forward to like seeing what he might do cinematography wise with the story. Yeah. But yeah, I'm in the same boat as far as like Jurassic World was fun if you're into that. Of course, it was no original, but I would much rather have JJ as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, I feel like there's such a heavy influence from like Kathy Kennedy and Disney over these films.
Yeah.
That you're never gonna get a director who's able to just bring like a unique, his own style and vision 100%.
Right.
So.
And cool, but Rian Johnson came close. I mean, there's a lot of things in there that you can see reflected from Brick and some of his other movies.
And even his work on Breaking Bad.
I did notice Joseph Gordon-Levitt voiced a character.
In
the credits.
Yeah,
I did notice that too. Yeah, actually. I mean, there's a lot of like visual styling that he has, like in Looper, with like the things floating around. Have you guys seen Looper?
Oh yes.
Oh yes.
Okay, so
great movie.
The Rainmaker, when all of those things are like floating around him, like that was very much that sequence where Rey is tapping into the Force and seeing her vision, and also lifting the rocks at the end. That was that was her.
I thought that was a great setup. That earlier in the film,
it's more than
lifting rocks. It's more than just lifting rocks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but then ultimately that was like one of the most important things that needed to be done at that moment.
And that was her contribution to saving the day, which is, I mean, it was well orchestrated.
Although I guess Leia wasn't feeling the Force with her in that particular moment because she was on the other side.
Right.
Oh. Well, she was just coming out of a coma or whatever.
She did blow a door off.
She did blow a door off.
Okay, all right.
Serious Force prior.
I liked the demonstration of Luke's ability when he walks in on Rey and Kylo and says stop and then blows up the entire place. Just like he just blew up the entire her little shack.
Mm-hmm.
Did you
that scene was awesome, but I immediately thought of those caretakers shaking their heads.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, they gotta rebuild that thing. Those are great little comic relief characters, I thought. What did you guys think about the caretakers?
I like the caretakers a lot.
Real good.
I did feel bad for them because these two people keep destroying their shit that they hold sacred.
I felt they were slightly better comic relief than the little bird characters.
Yeah. I like the bird characters.
I love them.
They were lovely. The bird characters.
Like the whole scene where Chewie's trying to eat them.
That was so funny. I thought that was great.
And then they become like Chewie's little buddies now.
The caretakers, I actually have like, what are they still like the Jedi salary? Like what? Like
are they related to the Gungans because they kind of look like frogs?
Yeah,
I mean.
They just,
but the little bird character, it's already dead.
Yeah.
And so, like, whether Chewie eats it or not, it's still dead.
No, but Chewie didn't. Chewie did not end up eating it.
Yeah.
So maybe
like,
Chewie's like
Chewie is vegan now.
Like
do this.
Maybe Chewie could have helped out more if he had gotten some nourishment. That's all I'm saying.
He's spreading veganism throughout the galaxy right now.
I love the
So
Luke and R2
what did you
moment.
guys think about the acquirement of blue milk?
Oh gosh!
Is that where the blue milk came from? Oh.
No. That scene
Yeah.
where
like
Luke is milking the
thing.
whatever it is.
The island.
I'm just
Space
happy
cow thing.
that in finally there's some nudity in a Star Wars movie.
That's how they got away with it.
That was great. Yeah, and the sequence with R2 and you were mentioning R2 and Luke, that was actually nice. That was a nice callback to the original with "Help Me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Your Only Hope."
Oh, that was a cheap move.
Because they couldn't have R2 in there too long because he would upstage BB-8, but just for that part, it was nice.
And it's nice to know that he still has that in his memory drives. He never deleted it.
Yeah.
I loved the line when I don't remember who said it now. Told C-3PO to Leia, wipe that worried look off your face, because
wipe that
obviously he's always got that same worried look on his face.
I like that Poe had a little bit more to do in this film than he did in Force Awakens.
Yeah,
and I really enjoyed that character.
I felt he was underused, or even like why was he there in Force Awakens?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So like to actually now he's a character was nice.
He was supposed to be killed off in Force Awakens. When he crashes the TIE fighter with Finn, that was when he was supposed to die, actually. But then they brought him back later in the movie, which I thought was cool. I liked him in this movie a lot. Any other?
I like his story arc because you get to see him move from just a trigger happy flyboy to an actual military leader.
Yes, that was
you see that entire arc in this movie. And
they're grooming him to sort of succeed.
Han Solo.
Han Solo and as a character-ish, but also like General Leia's role, like her position. He is like the next in command.
Well, Leia did pass the baton off to him at the end there when they're in the cave, and he says, "Follow me," and they all look at her.
Yeah.
And she's like, "What are you looking at me for? Follow him."
That was great. That was a great moment.
After previously she had, or maybe it was Laura Dern's character, had mentioned that or insinuated he's not a leader. And then Leia's all like, "Hey, follow the leader."
Yeah.
Right.
Although she still did stun him earlier after blasting the door down to take her ship.
Yeah.
I think the only character I was really disappointed in was, or as far as their story arc was concerned, was Finn's character, because I feel like he didn't really change much from 1 to 2, from 7 to 8.
Yeah.
And like he was just kind of like the same thing. So I really hope in 9 he has more of like an arc.
But he did want to become a hero. He was about to sacrifice himself into the.
Rose had already
the blaster cannon
recognized him as a hero, and he didn't even want to accept the label.
That's true.
Yeah. You could say that he was showing he's not afraid of the First Order anymore. Because in the first movie, that's all he wanted to do was get away from the First Order. He's terrified of ever going back.
Yeah.
And in this
movie,
at the
beginning of this
fought
one,
his fear and overcame that. But I agree, there wasn't much of an arc with Finn at all.
Right.
It was just neat seeing him because I like his character.
I was wondering if he was going to turn, if he was some sort of sleeper agent or something. Because when Hux said we have them at the end of a string or something.
He was the inside man.
Like a mole.
A mole. I was wondering. I'm glad they didn't do that, but I was like, I hope that's not what happened.
Well,
they really didn't expand on what was this string they had.
It was like the tracking device.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I gathered. But
I thought it was Laura Dern until they explained it.
Yeah, true. I thought she was going to turn out to be working for the.
But I thought about the same thing about Sean Astin in Stranger Things too. So.
Hey,
that he was working
double
for the...
spoiler alert.
We're not spoiling that. So, any other standout moments that you guys think are notable?
How about Leia using the same type of ray gun to stun Poe that was used to stun her in A New Hope?
Good point. That is a
good.
I didn't even notice that.
Like that.
Yeah.
It's like the blue circles.
Wants everybody to know what it feels feels like.
Yeah, and
it makes more it makes more sense that she would stun him like that because she likes him, and it doesn't make sense to me even still to this day, 40 years later, why the Empire didn't kill her and they stunned her.
Right. I did see that yesterday morning. And I noticed like the stun, like the blue circle that comes out.
It's the cliche of any movie.
Did you
where
see,
I was like, why did they
where
destroy
the good guy gets
or was it like a
stunned
special
instead
edition?
of destroyed when the bad guy clearly had the opportunity?
I left. I'm sorry. We were just talking about. I walked out of the scene where they had Jabba the Hutt yesterday. Anyway, what were you saying? What were you gonna say, Korgon?
Oh, I was gonna say like for all of the Star Wars movies we've seen, like the Emperor or the Supreme Leader when they're at the height of their power.
Yeah.
Or like in the prequels, he's gaining power, but he's still in the term of master. Like he has apprentices. He's not an apprentice himself. And in this movie, it felt like we were witnessing what Palpatine mentioned in Episode 3 during the opera when he was kind of lamenting over how he ends up killing his master Plagueis to get power.
Yeah.
And in this one, it's Kylo Ren doing that to Snoke to gain power, because we're kind of seeing like the beginnings of what could be the next Emperor or
the next trilogy,
or Supreme Leader kind of thing, instead of seeing them at the height of their power to begin with.
That's true. That we're seeing the rise of Ren.
The rise of Ren.
Yeah.
Which will fall next movie.
I think what made
I don't think he'll fall next
Exactly.
movie. I think this could be like maybe I don't know, but like we had the original trilogy where we meet these characters and they're at, like you said, like Vader's at the height of his power, and then we got the prequels where it was kind of building to that. Maybe we're building to that now, and then the next 3 films will be
They're sort of like
I disagree. Yeah. I think the first trilogy, obviously, it was Vader's story arc. Mm-hmm. The prequels failed in having a villain with a story arc. We had Darth Maul in the beginning, and then it was sort of the Emperor, but of course the Emperor has to continue on because it's already been
Count
set.
Dooku.
Dooku was stupid, and I think Kylo Ren, this is his story, and I think by the end of the next movie, it's got to have a resolution of some sort.
Right.
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, it's going to be weird to, like, where do we go? I mean, I asked that question earlier, but, like, where do we go from here in Star Wars? Like,
now,
Episode 9.
What do you think about critics generally reviewing the film very favorably, but some fans, it's a divisive film among fans?
That's an interesting question.
I haven't looked at any reviews yet, so
I thought it was great, but there's definitely a vocal. I mean, I guess there's a vocal minority on the internet that complains about everything.
Well, I just did, like right before I joined you guys, I was filming a video with my friend Matt Kohler for my spoiler review, and he hates the movie.
He hates it.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
He hated both of the new ones, but he's also a huge fan of the old canon. So all of the old books and those story arcs, and he doesn't connect with the new characters at all, and so he can't find anything that he really likes. He found the new movie boring, and so we had a good half an hour discussion on that. Finding out that really he just can't connect with the characters because he's so hung up on the old canon that he can't suspend belief or just attach himself to anything new. And he's not going to ever like the new movies, and it's okay. But the people that hate the new movies, they're just not going to be able to connect with the characters. And if you can't connect with the characters, you're not going to like anything that happens.
That's a good point. Actually, overall, for me, my overall, I guess we'll do like overall impressions, but I left it just sort of not knowing what to think of it. I enjoyed myself. I remember laughing throughout. I remember enjoying specific moments, but I felt there were really great moments, and moments that didn't really sit right. Again, like Leia coming back to life in space and then bringing herself
going full Superman.
Yeah, going full Superman. I was like, but I was like thinking, but 5 years from now, I'm just gonna look back and go, oh, that was the moment when Leia came back to life, and like not even gonna sort of think about, because if you think about Empire when that came out, when when Vader, spoiler alert, says, "No, I am your father," audiences hated it. From what I read, they hated it. They didn't believe it. They had to wait 3 years for Return of the Jedi to validate that claim. And
that happens with every trilogy. In hindsight, everything is better just because you have the full picture. Right now, we don't have the full picture.
Yeah.
Once we've seen the third movie, just like, The Force Awakens, a lot of people didn't like that, but there's a lot of things that make sense now because we saw the second movie.
Yeah.
And by the time we finish the third movie, the first 2 movies are going to make a lot more sense as well. So we're in the middle of a story. It's like we just put a bookmark 2/3 into a book and we're kind of waiting now.
Or 8/9 into a book.
Or 8/9.
Obviously, when Lucas made the original Star Wars, he didn't know he was going to be given the opportunity to make a sequel or a trilogy. So he kind of had to wrap that first movie up in a nice, tiny little bow.
Yeah.
When he did Empire, knowing that there was going to be a follow-up to that, he was able to kind of create these storylines that didn't necessarily have an ending and made us be like, what the F is going to happen next? How can you leave me in suspense? And I was missing a little bit of that from this movie, knowing that there's going to be a third one that's going to wrap everything up. There wasn't that definite spot where we're heading. Where are we going with this? It didn't leave me knowing where we're going.
That's
and I'm a little bit like, I wanted less answers in this movie than what we got.
Yeah, I guess it kind of has that same problem with like season 4 of Breaking Bad, when it's like, okay, Gus Fring is dead.
Yeah.
Like, what are we gonna do in season 5 now? We kind of have to restart everything and find. So there is kind of like that issue with episode 9, where there isn't really a clear trajectory.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like it's it's good to leave it open ended. I thought it was a good movie. I thought it was. Just all the pieces fit together reasonably well. It was very synthetic. It drew from lots of different characters, and it's hard to say that it really had single leads. It really had 5, 6, 7 strong leads that each got relatively equal screen time.
That's true. Yeah. There was a lot of going on, different places, different locations happening constantly. Yeah.
But would anybody disagree that Rey is our main hero here?
No.
No, Rey's definitely the main hero.
She's the main protagonist.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, the original trilogy, though, had the bonus of knowing what direction they were going to go in. Because Lucas originally wrote the script for Star Wars was just too big. And so when he got funding for the first movie, he was like, well, I can't turn all of this into one movie. It's too much. I'll just do the first act.
Yeah.
And then have the Death Star explode. And that's what he did. And then if I get money, I'll do the next 2. Right. So he knew where he was going to go already anyway. With this one, we don't know, and even the creators kind of don't really know where they're going to go with it because too many things have been happening with the production and Leia dying that they have to change stuff last minute.
Yeah.
So
that goes into corporate.
The writers know where it's going to go yet.
That really, that goes right into the whole corporate business of filmmaking. That I mentioned a little earlier, where obviously the filmmakers are now, they're watching shit like this, they're listening to everybody, they're hearing what the fans want to see, want to hear, want to know, and then they're going to tailor the scripts to that, rather than having, say, a set plan from the beginning.
Yeah. I hate that. I hate the fan service.
Right. It's very crowdsourcing. I want something bold. I want like a statement.
Well, that's why I'm excited about the new trilogy that Rian Johnson is going to do, because he's writing the trilogy before they're shooting it. So they're going to, just like the original trilogy, they're going to know where they're going in the third movie by the time they start shooting the first scene of the first movie.
But you got to wonder how much maybe might change, say, after the first movie comes out, that they're like, oh, people like this, people didn't like that, let's rewrite all the rest of these 2 scripts.
Well, it's also like the oversaturation level. Like, are people going to be tired of it by that point? I mean, I love Star Wars. I was such a Star Wars nerd as a kid, and I loved it. And then, like, the prequels came out, and, they're the prequels. But like, I remember, like, being there opening night to see Phantom Menace, and I was like, I can't wait. But I feel like getting a new Star Wars movie every single year.
Yeah.
Like, is it going to make us tired? Because, like, I'll be honest, I was not necessarily looking forward to The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
I saw the first trailer, and I thought it was a carbon copy of the first trailer for The Force Awakens. Like, it hit the same beats.
Right.
And I was like, whatever.
My friend Matt agrees with you. That was one of his points in the video we just made, is that he's feeling the Star Wars fatigue already.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm feeling that too. Like, I wasn't as excited for this, obviously, as I was for Episode 7, but then again, Episode 7 was like the first in a long time.
Yeah.
We didn't know that
it was.
Yeah.
You know, the idea of seeing a new Star Wars.
Yeah.
We get stars from Teague from just one Star Wars movie a year, and yet we're watching 3 or 4 Marvel movies.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I can't wait for these last set of Avengers to be done so I can never watch another one.
I've barely seen any of those Marvel movies, and I'm already sick of most of them.
I will say, though, going back to like
great.
the love of Star Wars and how it's embedded in our culture, as much as I wasn't looking forward to it, or like not expecting to like it, or like, oh, here we go again, when the words "a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away" come up, you just get so pumped, and then that John Williams theme hits, and goosebumps, and you're just like, okay, I'm in this to win it. I mean,
the crowd was like deafening at the first showing yesterday. It was just so.
I felt that way about Rogue One, where like, okay, here comes this Star Wars movie that's not actually a Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
And like, I was like, I don't know about this. But ultimately, it was like a really fun and good little sub-movie in the universe.
Yeah, it was a smaller movie.
And we got to see Darth Vader kick ass.
Which doesn't line up
was
with
all we ever
A New Hope,
wanted to see in the first place in any of those movies.
Yeah, that's true.
What do you think of the Han Solo movie?
I'll see it.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be there opening day.
I'm kind of skeptical.
Very skeptical.
Because Harrison Ford was such a specific actor.
Well, that's the thing. Is like there can only be one Han Solo.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, but John Glover
as young Lando. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm stoked about that.
It's perfect.
But the question is he going to pronounce it Han or Han?
Han, old buddy.
Because he calls him Han. I was watching Empire yesterday, and he's like, Han. And like everybody calls him Han.
Inside joke in the movie.
Yeah. It's funny.
Well, like, you know, I'm sure we all have friends who like people just consistently mispronounce their name. Like, I have a friend, his name's Ben Bennett. She's the co-host on our podcast. And everyone pronounces his last name Banesh. Even some of our closest friends who we've had for years, like they still call him Banesh.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
I don't even know what you're talking about, Nat.
Nate, not.
I had a friend who used to call me Nate or Not.
Nate or Not?
Yeah. That was weird. Anyway.
So final thoughts on Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi.
Didn't we just give
I mean, was that the final thought?
I thought it was fun.
Rating. What's your rating out of 10?
8.
8?
You know, I honestly, on the scale, I might even give it a 9.
A 9.
9.5. I really liked the way it came together.
I give it an 8.1.
I'm going to go 7.5, and I'm also going to add, I think, at least with Disney involved, that this is potentially the best we're going to get of, like, the new trilogies.
I think so, too, actually. I think this is the bar. This is... do you like it better or not better than The Force Awakens?
I'm going to go better.
I gave it an A-
better.
for my scale, so I guess you would say
you
like it.
I might
say what was Coricon? What was your score?
I said I gave it an A-, so I guess in numbers it would be probably an 8.25, and I think it's better than Force Awakens.
I would agree. I think it maybe is a little bit better than Force Awakens.
Yeah.
At least in particular, that it wasn't such a carbon copy of the previous trilogy.
Right. Alex Santiago says it was weird. Let us know why you think it was weird, Alec.
Yeah. Why was it weird? I do see a lot of callbacks from Empire to this one. Yeah. And I had mentioned last night after we'd seen it early that the whole casino scene was very reminiscent of Bespin. They went to Bespin. They found a Lando who ultimately became the guy that turned them in because he got a deal from the Empire, etc., etc. It was very right on the nose.
All the time.
I'll say that the casino scene was the reason I gave it a 7.5 instead of an 8. Like that whole planet, I didn't like it. I thought it was a little too prequely.
Yeah.
Some like the one CGI character who kept sticking coins in BB-8. I was like, all right, this is cheesy. Then like the elongated like space Kentucky Derby sequence where they're freeing the horses and riding through the fields.
I thought that added a significant backstory to the corruption in the Empire and the nation in a way that Croissant didn't in the prequels.
Yeah.
Like to see an elite place that's more like a resort island.
I love the intent behind it, and I do love the story. I just thought it was executed kind of poorly.
I know. Yesterday,
I'm there with you. I think it was
the casino to Episode 6, Jabba's Palace.
Yes.
But I equated it to
in the special edition.
Exactly, Episode 4, Creature Cantina.
In the special edition.
In the special edition with the extra CGIs.
Cork, what was that, Corkon?
I was going to say, do you think that's something that could come up in the third movie of what Finn went through with all of that, finding out that the people making all the money are selling weapons to both sides?
I hope so.
And,
I don't think so. I think they've...
Basically, they're just pawns, and then that the guy being, betraying him and saying it's just business. You blow him up today, they blow you up tomorrow. Blah, blah, blah.
I think they made that point.
In the third movie, it's going to sour him or change his character.
I don't think so. I think they made that point very clearly, and I think that's over and done with, and they're going to move on.
Fair.
I would like to see it explored a little bit more as far as like what relationship is there really to these people. Like is somebody like who's playing who kind of.
I mean, maybe this whole trilogy though, the whole theme is everybody's got a little bit of good and bad in them, and maybe you're all working a little bit on both sides, and nobody's actually it's not black and it's not white.
Yeah,
there's gray, and goes back right to the Gray Jedi.
Gray Jedi.
The Gray Jedi. We got a question. What did you love about it? What did you hate about it? Is there anything that you particularly loved? For me, I loved the moment with the back-to-back Kylo Ren and Rey fighting. I thought the crate sequence looked pretty cool, but you kind of got that from the trailer. But I loved pretty much a lot of the stuff with Luke. I thought Luke was the highlight.
Can I say that I loved Mark Hamill's performance?
Yes.
Because it was, without a doubt, his best performance in a Star Wars movie. And Tate mentioned yesterday, maybe ever. It might be performance Mark Hamill's ever made.
Do we count the Joker in the Batman animated series?
A live-action performance.
That's pretty great, yeah. Voice acting is acting. Also, we should start the campaign for Mark Hamill's Best Supporting Actor nomination for The Last Jedi.
I don't know. Did you see Richard Jenkins in The Shape of Water? That was pretty awesome.
I didn't see that yet.
Oh, so good.
I'm gonna go watch that.
My favorite part was the fact that they killed off Snoke and did not explain where he came from.
Right.
We've all talked about this before, that we all kind of have a little bit of a problem with not knowing who the fuck is Snoke.
I don't at all. I like the idea of just a bad guy who's a bad guy.
I think it goes in line with the Force being, again, more egalitarian, more accessible, not a super unique.
I guess. Well, go ahead and finish your thought.
Oh, no, I was.
I guess my issue with that is, I'm okay with Snoke being somewhat obscure as far as what his original origins were.
Yeah.
I just want to know, how did Snoke corrupt Ren if he was under Luke's watch?
Jin Ren?
That's inside joke. Maybe they do that actually. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you can.
We didn't get much explanation. They didn't show any of the Knights of Ren. They just kind of.
That's true.
Went over some of that, so maybe we get more of that backflash storyline in the third movie.
That could be cool.
They should develop that, because Luke does say he left with a bunch of my students.
I know from personal experience here, when I was in film school, one of the very first things I did was I wrote a script. And my whole script, the very idea why I made this script is about a serial killer, was that ultimately at the end, why did the serial killer kill all the people? And I'm like, sometimes we just don't know why these people do what they do. Right. Sometimes we just don't know. And everybody that read my script was all like, well, why the fuck do they do that? I want to know. Everybody wants to know. Who the fuck is Snoke? Who is Snoke? We gotta know.
Like I said,
they may not ever say, because they did set it up in the movie to where anybody could become powerful from anywhere, and it doesn't matter what your lineage is.
Yeah, like
Taylor's just where he comes from just falls along the same lines.
Yeah, I don't care where he came from. I just want to know how he corrupted.
I don't know if the masses can buy into that.
Yeah, them asses.
Like us few select. Maybe.
I mean, I think the masses can buy into anything if you look at the movies that are successful.
Or the sign of Donald Trump.
Right. So Alex Santiago says a lot of things like
any of Nathan's family who supports Donald Trump, they can vouch for it.
Yeah, a lot of things that happened with Snoke and Rey and Kylo's relationship. Luke's attitude toward Kylo seemed very unlike how he saw things in Return of the Jedi. Yeah, I mean, I suppose.
Well, I mean, because he's changed. He's changed very much. He was naive and had a very different perspective, and I think this shows the journey of Luke's character from where he was in his perspective on the Force in Return of the Jedi to now having a much wiser critique of the Jedi Order and the Sith and that whole dynamic.
Yeah, I think if you look at Luke in a whole, ignoring Mark Hamill's performance, the Luke character from one movie to the next has definitely grown and changed more than maybe any character we've ever seen.
That's true.
In any Star Wars movie or group of movies.
And second would be Chewbacca now becoming vegan.
Yeah, and a great pilot.
But no, you're right, Corey. Because having watched like the prequels and the originals and all this, like it seems like all the Skywalkers are kind of whiny. But where like young Anakin, based on what George Lucas showed us with the prequels, was always very like, I just want to get my time
and my super whiny the entire time.
But so is Kylo. Like he's like super, You know
what? But I think he turned a corner to where now he's not so much whiny.
But Luke is the only one that's
more
grown.
Like pissed off.
And what you touched on with like earlier, you mentioned like the PTSD that Luke has and all this. The fact that he's seen the dark side, how it can corrupt like his father, even though he was able to turn away from it in the end, and how he got close to it in like, select scenes in Empire and there at the end of Return of the Jedi, and then seeing it in Kylo, it's like, is his bloodline, like is how strong his family's connection to the Force is more subject to going to the dark side? I mean, it makes sense that he'd be like, all right, well, there's another Skywalker Solo who's turned to the dark side. Let's just end this now.
We'll call it a Skywalker because it is.
Yeah.
Despite the last name.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Call it the Skywalker gene.
It is the Skywalker gene.
Very emotional.
Yeah.
They're all very emotional.
Let's talk before we end this whole thing. Let's talk real quick just about like the most important element of all, and it's that Schwartz ring. Is his Schwartz bigger than mine or yours?
The rebel ring at the end.
The rebel ring. You're right.
Oh,
May the Schwartz
be with you.
Who gave him that ring again? It was Rose. Rose's ring. Yeah. I mean, now is this kid just a symbol for the new rebellion?
I think so.
Together? Hope. Yeah, New Hope.
The New Hope.
He's the
episode 9. New Hope.
I don't think
he's going to be in episode 10. He's like 10 through 12. He's going to be the lead.
Right.
He's Ryan Johnson's new lead character.
Yeah.
Flash forward.
Little Easter egg.
Potentially. Yeah.
Potentially.
Little Easter egg. Well.
Like maybe we're joking now, but maybe he really is.
Would go back to the Knights of the Old Republic.
The Knights. Yeah, I feel like they should just do a whole new era of Star Wars and not necessarily continue
They don't have to use any of the characters from Knights of the Old Republic, but at least go to that era.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that would be a great idea for a TV series because they're developing a TV series, and I think if they do it on a Game of Thrones level of depth of character and all different people from different regions and different sects folks that we actually care about. I think that could actually work out.
I don't understand.
You don't understand.
Hey Siri.
Despite the execution of the prequels, right? Ignoring the execution, obviously there's 3 movies, 6+ hours of movie where we basically know where it's going, and that's a problem.
What, the first 6 movies?
Yeah, with the prequels.
Oh, the prequels
with
ruined.
The first 3 movies. With the prequel 3 movies. We know where it's going, so that's a problem. Obviously, with these new movies, we don't know what's yet to come.
Yeah.
And in any other production, Star Wars or anything else, if we don't know what's yet to come, there's a sense of what's yet to come.
Yeah.
And with the prequels, we already know where the end goal is. So getting there has got to be ultimately, like, incredibly entertaining or unsuspected of, like, oh, I didn't know that's how they could have got there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There is no destination. It's open wide. It's wide open for episode 9, so we don't know what's going to happen. That's in 2 years. Or is it a year and a half?
2 years. 2 years.
Oh, it's 2 years.
Yeah. It's going to be Christmas.
It's going to be during Christmas. Well,
or is it... Isn't, like, the third one, didn't they say it's going to be in May? Like the old one used to be?
Well, I heard that
Han Solo is going to be in May.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then I think JJ, when he came on board, he had them push it back from the following May to the following December.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for coming on the show and talking about Star Wars with me. This is awesome. This is an epic spoiler review. We've got Corey, Tay, myself, Aristotle Full Throttle, and Nathan. And Nathan, you've got a podcast, right?
I do. We tried and we failed the podcast.
What's it called?
We tried and we failed.
We tried and we failed. This is
failed.
And you guys obviously know this channel. Tay, where can they find you?
I don't.
Google Tay Zonday.
Yeah.
you'll find him.
You'll find him.
Corey?
I'm looking for work. I'm available.
Yeah.
Come on, guys.
Anyone needs a gaffer?
Great gaffer. I need a gaffer in here. But
the lights could use some work.
Yes, it's very true. I need some good lighting.
Much glossing that over.
Yeah, for sure. I did get Wi-Fi bulbs though. I'll show you that after this.
Oh, you're fancy.
But thank you guys for joining us on this Star Wars: The Last Jedi review. Thank you, Korakhan. Where can we find you? I don't want to forget about you.
2 channels: Korakhan Nala for Indian movies and Korakhan Nerd for American.
Awesome. And subscribe to his channel. Subscribe to my channel. If you like this video, like it. If you're here, like it. If you're seeing our faces, just like the video. And share it with your friends. I'm Aristotle Full Throttle, your bro in the fro with the no. Wait, I'm your bro with the fro in the no. Y'all can touch the hair if you like. It's gonna take me a second to like turn this off actually. So I didn't really time this well.
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with y'all.
And happy holidays.
Happy holidays. That's true. Yeah. We've got a very good. We've got a holiday themed